Welcome to this week's episode of Practice What You Teach. We have Anna with us today. Hello.
Hi, so happy to be here.
I'm excited. I'm excited to get into the good stuff today. But before we do, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'm Anna Marchese. I am a licensed clinical social worker and holistic therapist with Collaborative Insights in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I work with Shika Patel, the owner, and we are a couple of therapists who are both from New Jersey and moved to North Carolina 2 years ago around the same time. Didn't know each other up north, found each other down here, have aligned our services really well. And nicely. And so we are practicing out of Charlotte, still do virtual sessions for New Jersey folks. And we just recently opened up an office in Charlotte. So we offer virtual and in person. So that is what we do. So I do traditional talk therapy, including cognitive behavioral therapy. And I also incorporate yoga, Reiki, and mindfulness to any extent that my therapy clients are willing to and open to it. And I provide standalone services for yoga classes, individual sessions, small groups, and Reiki services as well. If therapy is not for them, but they want to do the energy work, or if they already have a therapist that they have a great relationship with, I'm not trying to get in the way of that, but Reiki can only kind of support what they're doing cognitively with their therapist.
Yeah.
That's what I do. And then I'm a mom of two little ones. I've got a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old at home. So I feel like I can't do anything and not mention those tiny teachers in my life.
Of course. Of course. I love kind of the holistic healing approach. You've got kind of the therapy side of things to kind of talk it out, but then you've got these other ways to tap into some healing that can work on different levels than maybe kind of more traditional talk therapy can. And so love yoga. We have a video a couple episodes ago with some yoga teachers talking about what that's like. Check that one out if you haven't watched it yet. But today we're talking about Reiki, and I am so excited to talk about Reiki. So
me too.
Before we get into talking about the topic of the show, how you use Reiki for yourself, can you give us a quick intro to what is Reiki for those who don't know?
Sure, absolutely. I always like to ask people first. I'm like, before I launch into my thing, do you know about it? So Reiki is energy healing. It is a meditation and mindfulness practice that comes from Japan. So it originated in Japan. And it is something that can connect people to source, higher power, divine, whatever that is that you want to call it, even if it's just inner self. And so it is traditionally it's hands-on. So people are usually most familiar with it with hands-on. A practitioner is working on another person's body to read energy and locate blockages of energy, things that get stuck. So that can come out as physical pain, physical ailments, or certainly mental blockages, mental ailments. And that's where the mental health piece of it comes in. So it's traditionally known as hands-on, but it can also be done virtually. So that's a little bit less known, that it can be done from a distance. Since it is energy work, time and space, it can kind of cut through all the time and space barriers. And so like I said, it works to connect a person to whatever source they're comfortable identifying it with. And really just allows for a deep relaxation state, which allows the body to get into that rest mode, and allows more natural healing to occur physically and mentally. So I like it. I like it on its own, but I really do like it as a complement to medical care, mental health care, some of those traditional westernized approaches. But I like how it complements it and does something a little deeper and a little different.
Yeah. And it's certainly something that, like you said, it's kind of connecting to whatever that source is. And so different people might connect to it in different ways, kind of find meaning and value from it in some different ways. But it can really kind of take things to kind of like a deeper level. And yeah, that energy healing, like it can do some pretty powerful things sometimes. And whether it is emotional or physical or mental or whatever it is, like we can feel it in all kinds of different ways.
For sure. Right. Any and all of the above, any combination
Uh-huh.
um, of those things for sure. And
Yeah.
it's usually one of those things I'm like, I can describe it, and it's not always going to come across verbally as much as it will with just experiencing
Yeah.
it. And I know it's a hard, that always feels like a gap in like, I can tell you what it is, but you kind of have to experience it to
Yeah.
get it.
And
Yeah.
so for those
Relate to that.
for those who have been on the fence about if you want to check it out or not, this is kind of the universe kind of calling out that maybe it's time to book that Reiki session with somebody. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
So let's talk a little bit about how you use Reiki yourself, right? Because that's kind of what we want to talk about here is kind of like what are some of the things that you do yourself that work for you, and like what does that look like? And so, I know going and having Reiki done somewhere else by someone else is common. And when people
Mhm.
think about it, that's what they think of. But what
Mhm.
does using it for yourself on yourself look like?
Sure. Yeah. So there are three different levels in most traditions, three different levels of Reiki training. So the first one that I went through was self healing. And so it was, here's some Reiki tools, and you're going to use them and practice them on yourself first, period. And like lots of us go into it wanting to like heal the world and get out there and put all of the energy out there. And it's absolutely important. But I had to first focus on myself, so it
Mhm.
was self, and then it was learning to do it on others and at a distance. And then just collecting more tools on the third level and eventually being able to attune people. So when you ask about like how to look on myself, like that's the foundation, that's the root of how I learned it. And so it started out with me practicing on myself. Once I got attuned, I certainly received Reiki and went to other people first, and was so hooked. I was like, I've got to learn this. I got to learn this. I got to share it. I want to do it. So for me, it is connecting to the Reiki guides, the teachers of Reiki, who it originated from and who the tradition got passed down to, because of their work that they've done. So Dr. Yusui, Madam Takara, and Dr. Hayashi. Um, and then from there, for me, it is getting in touch with the spirituality part that I am comfortable with. And that's where we'll distinguish. It's not any specific religion or spirituality. You don't even have to have any connections. But for me, that is part of it. Um, and so it will often be a meditative state for me. Um, Being a mom, the most time I get to do it is like when I'm laying in bed, either before bed, when I'm up in the middle of the night, or if I happen to wake up first and don't have to run and do something. It's a nice relaxation state for me to get into. Um, and sometimes I put hands on myself. I'll put hands on certain energy centers that I feel like I'm holding some stuff in and I need to kind of clear out. And other times I will kind of lay in the energy of receiving and allowing and asking and meditating for the guides to do the work for me, because I am very much of a doer. So for me, the balance is to not be the one doing, but trust and faith in receiving, and allowing that to flow. So that itself is the practice sometimes for me of like, oh, I want to be calmer. I want to be calmer. What do I have to do? Well, stop doing, and allow yourself to receive. So for me at this point, it is kind of like when I get to it, it's a couple minutes here and there usually, when it's kind of maintenance stuff. When it is stuff is really built up, I am reaching out to my teachers and I'm going, hey, I do need a session. So I will not be above doing that. Hey, I need more. I need to receive on a deeper level, and then going out and asking for that help.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm thinking about how, when I see Reiki being offered at certainly at places, usually it's kind of in usually 30 or 60-minute kind of like increments. And so it sounds like when
Mhm.
you're doing it with yourself, you may not have 30 or 60 or even 10 solid minutes with all
Right.
the things going on. So it sounds like there are ways that you are able to kind of either kind of do it in chunks or maybe kind of hone it into a much more like intentional, like brief practice
Mhm.
and really kind of tune into like in that moment, here's what I'm needing to kind of like focus on and focus on exactly that
Mhm.
for maybe 90 seconds if that's all you have.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I wouldn't say that I started there either. I wouldn't say I got attuned to level 1 and that's how I started. I had a teacher that was like, "Oh, someday you'll just be able to like sit down, watch TV and just kind of like do it on yourself or someone else." And I was like, "Really?" Because right now I feel like I'm really focusing and trying to do it right and really getting intense. But I think it's like speaking to that, like following your intuition. So I'll say after lots of work, both therapeutically, lots of work energetically with Reiki, I'm at a point now where I feel like that's possible. I certainly feel like it would be accessible to anyone. But personally, I had to work through lots of stuff and clear lots of energetic things and set lots of boundaries. That is what it can look like right now.
Mhm.
But I would say early on it was very methodical, and it was working very traditionally through the chakras and certain energy centers and doing it like as taught until I found my own flow and found my own listening to my intuition about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, how do you know when this is what you need to do versus maybe doing something else that's like relaxing? Like, how do you know that, like, ooh, yeah, I may only have a few minutes, but like Reiki's the thing, not TikTok
Mhm.
or anything else?
Oh, that's such a good question. And I think that my answer is it's when that other stuff isn't working
Mm,
anymore. Like when it's not doing what it normally does for me, whether it is that just like scrolling and tuning out and hey, that's just what I needed and cool. Or like, well, I'm doing my regular exercises and like getting physically moving like I normally would. And I'm like meeting up with my friends and I'm like, I'm doing the stuff, but it's not the results and the effectiveness of it is not as strong as it normally is. That's usually my sign, and my indicator, and sometimes I'm real stubborn and I'll push it till it's, like, hitting me in the face, like, "You've got to do something
uh-huh.
energetically, or something's gonna, like, crash." Um, that when those things are not working, it's like, "Okay, yeah, energetically, there's, like, a blockage, there's stuff I'm holding on to, there's emotions I'm stuffing down," um, or certainly physical pain is always a good indicator. Physical pain's a good sign. So there are like whispers, and it leads to shouts if I don't listen to the whisper.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
But yeah, it's when those like I'm doing all the things like what's wrong? I'm like, oh, I haven't like checked in energetically. I haven't cleared energetically lately. I haven't put
Mhm.
protective barriers up energetically lately. That's why.
Yeah. Ooh, so that brings up an interesting question, right? Like, what does it look like to protect yourself energetically?
Mm. I've had teachers and I like to really imagine and envision actual barriers around me. Um, so that can be, and I'll guide people through it too in sessions. Like, let's put you in a bubble, or let's put you in a like sphere of light, or a crystal, like anything, any kind of imagery that works for people that you actually step into, so that your energy and your aura are within that, and setting an intention for no lower vibrations to come in. Nothing that would lower your vibration can come in. Only something that will match your vibration or raise it. And so those are barriers that I will step into if I know I'm walking into some kind of really intense energy, with a certain person or just at a certain event or just, I mean, big social events or anything like that. I will sometimes just put that up there because as an empath, and a highly sensitive person, those kinds of things can drain me really quickly, or I can really easily pick up on other people's energy and then just be taking it around with me for days without noticing it. So I usually like to use some kind of imagery for people that covers them, just on all sides, top, bottom, side, back and front, all of that. So that's usually my go-to. And sometimes it's more than one layer. Really need to expand the protection out there.
Depending on what's going on, right? We might need those extra layers. So how do you, like, what helps you remember that you have that? Especially, gosh, I'm thinking about times where maybe, you're in a situation and the vibe just isn't matching yours, but you're not able to maybe leave or step out yet. And you're kind of feeling just kind of stuck in that space. How do you remind yourself that you have that? What helps you kind of keep that in the front of your brain rather than kind of getting caught up in the like, oh my God, I can't wait to get out of here kind of feelings?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, to be perfectly honest, sometimes I don't remember and I don't remind myself. And I am in that place. And I might come to it later. I might not. So full transparency, not all the time. And other times, if I'm in a place where I'm a little more in touch and in tune, and remembering is if I'm feeling that ick and I'm like, and I'm able to remember, hey, is this mine? Is this mine, or is it this person's, or this people, or this event, this place? And so sometimes it's, if I'm lucky enough to be in touch with that and remember, is this mine or not? And just that simple question will sometimes bring some separation to what I'm feeling. And so I might still feel it. I might still be in it. I might not be able to get out of it just yet, but it'll be that, because I'll feel that. Sometimes I will fully feel another person's stuff and be like, this isn't mine to carry. But I'm fully feeling it. It's such a kind of crazy phenomenon to happen. So if I'm lucky, I remember that, and I just ask myself that question. Is it mine, or what is it triggering that is mine?
Right.
Perhaps.
Right.
Yeah.
I imagine that more often than not, the answer to that question of like, is it mine, is probably no. More often than not. But I mean, sometimes you're right. It might kind of bring up something additional like for us that then that thing might be ours that we just kind of need to check in with, be aware of, maybe give permission to come back to later.
Right. Is there something I'm not saying? Is there a boundary I'm not setting? And that's why I keep feeling like this. If it's like a repeatable pattern, then it might be okay, that's theirs, but what can I do about it? Is there something I can do about it? Even if it doesn't fully change that person or that behavior or that energy. What is mine in this? Yeah, I can do something with. I feel like that's been a huge part of the journey overall with Reiki for me.
I mean, I definitely hear that it's something that this is something that developed, right? It's something that you you learned a while ago and have practiced and kind of like grown it into something that works for you, but it took time to get there, right? You didn't go to one training and we're like, oof, okay, I got this down and I am quick self-healing in the moment when I need to. Like, this was a gradual build to where you are now.
Yeah, it was gradual, and it wasn't that all sunshine, rainbows, butterfly. It was like, I'm gonna really go through some sticky stuff and work my way through it for sure.
And I like how you talked about kind of like, even now, continuing to recognize when you need to reach out to your teachers, your people who, if you're feeling stuck, like, it happens. It doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong or you forgot how or anything like that. It's sometimes we need that like extra external like support.
Yeah, yeah, we do. And that being gentle with ourselves and allowing ourselves to cycle through that. I certainly cycle through it. There's times I feel like I'm doing it well, managing my energy really well, and there's other times where it just kind of feels like it fell off. And I have so many clients that I see who are like, but I was doing all of these great things and now I'm not. And I will always just bring up nature, and we allow nature to go through her cycles and her seasons. And like, could we possibly allow ourselves the same grace
Yes.
to flow that through that? Because I let go of tons of things that are so helpful to me that make me feel good all the time, and then I feel good, and I
Mhm.
either let it go because I'm feeling good, and I'm like, I don't have to do it as much, and then I just stop doing it.
Exactly.
And have done it and still do it. Up
Yeah.
to like a couple weeks ago, I was like, oh, my energy is way off. I gotta like step out of it. And like I felt this whole outer shell thing, some of it just really sitting there stagnant for a while. I was
Mhm.
like, oh, I really have not been. And just that reminder, and not spending too much time like judging ourselves and shaming ourselves and feeling guilty that we have gone through a cycle
Yeah.
or are back around it.
Well, and I think, it happens in so many different areas, right? It happens with, different like routines that we have. We might be really in the routines for a while, and then our energy goes and focuses somewhere else. And that routine might kind of like the clean clothes may sit in the hamper to be folded for an extra day or two, right? Or we might lean more into the grab and go snacks, or we might do
Mhm.
the quicker, like exercise thing, whatever that means, rather than the full workout that we had planned and that we watched the video for. So
Right.
there's gonna be ebb and flow with all those different parts of our life. And this is
Yeah.
not immune to it, right? Like the energy healing piece is not immune to just kind of that shifting of focus, and kind of like our body tells us what it needs, and our mind and our heart and our soul, like everything, it communicates with each other and itself. And we might need to focus more on our physical self for that period of time. And then our soul might be calling to us because maybe we need to focus a little bit more on kind of that energy piece and kind of get that back on track. And that's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's the allowing. And I always feel like when anyone will come to my table for Reiki, as soon as they're doing that, they are saying, I'm allowing whatever energy needs to come, to go, releasing any energy that needs to go. But I think even in that practice of simply allowing and letting someone else work on you, or if you're practicing it on yourself, that practice of allowing is what can unlock so much more flow in our lives, energetically and beyond, into physical, mental, emotional
Yeah.
spaces as well.
Yeah. So I know, I mean, the experience of Reiki, it's a little bit hard to like demonstrate in a video like this. And so, because a big part of it is like an internal experience, and that can be a little bit hard to kind of like show externally, especially in the time that we have today. But if people
Mhm.
wanted to learn more about, what it is, but also kind of like, what does it look like to like implement this stuff? Maybe ways that they can kind of start to learn what that might look like for themselves. How can they do that? How can they learn?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can learn in a couple different ways. You could absolutely simply reach out to me. Like I said, it's my favorite thing to talk about. So I'd be always happy to talk about whether it's me or something or someone else that would be the right fit. I'm always happy to describe it and talk about it. With Collaborative Insights, we are on Instagram. And so we do provide a lot of information through posts and reels and stories there. So that's at Collab in Therapy. Um, and I'm sure you'll kind of get that linked. And then I have some recorded meditations that are always kind of infused with Reiki, because I feel like it's kind of just part of what I do, whether I'm specifically doing Reiki or not, that I can share with you, that you could share with the viewers and the listeners. Um, but I will as we're opening up in person here in Charlotte, we will be offering more services both in person and virtually in terms of Reiki. Next week, I'm going to be at a teacher training, so I will be able to attune people. So that will be like a future service with collaborative insights to stay tuned to if someone's really interested in getting attuned for themselves. It's something I'll eventually be able to offer. But I'm also trying to offer virtual Reiki, group Reiki sessions for people. Hopefully like a lunchtime, maybe monthly thing for people who are busy, and maybe they can fit it into their day to do some of the meditating and just allow and receive some Reiki energy healing that will help support their own goals. So I know these are kind of future things that I'm talking about, but it's all kind of in the works and seeds planted. So I would say, come find me, follow us, and stay tuned, because exciting things are coming.
Yes, yes. Ooh, and I really like kind of that idea of maybe doing some like virtual like groups, and maybe that's a way to, if you're curious about it, maybe that's a way to kind of like tiptoe into it and kind of try it out. Maybe a little kind of less one-on-one. Maybe that might feel
Yeah,
a way to kind of sample it and see
absolutely.
if it works for you.
Mhm. Yes, get a taste. That's how I started. I was in a group, it was in person, but I did group stuff first. And I was like, I don't know what this Reiki thing is, but it works.
Uh-huh.
And I got to keep doing it. So yeah, kind of, there's times for groups, there's time for individuals, there's time for all of it.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, we'll definitely, your website, your Instagram, all that stuff will be linked below so you guys can check it out and find that info soon. And I'm sure once everything kind of gets going, Instagram will be the place to get those updates on, what's available. And and even if you're not in the Charlotte area, there's some virtual
Mhm.
options. So check it out.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
Yes.
for sharing this today. It was really interesting. I think the energy healing stuff, there's so much out there, and different things work for different people. And so it's really just kind of about finding what's the thing that speaks to you, what's the thing that works for you, even if that means trying out some different things until you find the right one or ones.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for giving this space for me and other practitioners to talk about um, these things and putting that out in the world and kind of like putting a microphone and making it louder. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah,
Needed.
yeah. Well, thank you guys for tuning in today. Make sure you hit subscribe so you're up to date when new videos are coming out, and we'll see you next time.